Okay, so in this video where I'll show you how you can start to add reflection, right? So luckily the grass that we added, because those also in the water, it naturally creates that reflection. So we can see that obviously it gets a little more rippled, it starts to blur and fade the further it gets out. So we want to do the same thing with our bridge as well. So what we can do is go to our boardwalk layer here. I'm just going to go ahead and hit Control J to copy that. So we'll keep this new one that's now on the top as that one, and then we'll take this bottom one and make that the reflection. So I'm going to hit Control T and do right click on it and say flip vertically. Okay, so now we've got this idea of it being kind of this mirror of it. So I'm just going to move it up so that we can start to get that idea of the reflection. What's good about it is that it still also has the grass brushes that we use to mask it, right? So it'll actually kind of blend in nicely still with that water by adding some additional edits to it. So the next thing I'm going to do, don't worry about this, like we'll take care of that earlier or later. But I want to, again, kind of give it that ripple effect as well. So I'm going to go up to Filter, Distort, and Wave. And this is a little tricky. You'll have to kind of really finesse it some. In order to have a lot of kind of tiny, small ripples, you want to have a good number of generators for this. You want there to be some variation in the wavelength. Doesn't have to be too extreme. I just, again, kind of keep this on the lower ends, right? You can still see where it gets a little bit more kind of large gestures. So I'm going to keep it pretty low here. Keep all these pretty low as well. These just start to affect how much it kind of goes off in those different directions, right? So we would just want it to be kind of subtle, a little kind of choppy. I'll go ahead and hit OK. Now we can start to see that it has that quality to it. So now we want to do a couple more things. I'm going to go ahead and let's see, let's go ahead and start brushing it away now. So we'll go ahead and start doing that. I'll just go ahead and bump that up to 100 since we really don't need any of it over there. And I'll just make sure I zoom out to get rid of all that stuff where I don't need it. Okay, so now we start to get that. I want it to even kind of, again, fade out a little bit, so I'm going to just kind of brush that. I'll maybe reduce it a little bit more to 30 so it's not as strong as a erase of it, but we do want to start to kind of have that kind of quality to it where it's, again, kind of gives that illusion of it losing that reflectivity the further it gets away in the water. There's another thing we can do to this. We can also go up to Filter, Blur, and use a Gaussian blur to, again, we can start to see how we probably don't need it that strong, but we do want it to, again, kind of lose some of that crisp edges that way as well. Kind of just like how the grass does that same thing. So I mean, again, what's great about this is that it always keeps that there, so you can see how like these natural reflections, it definitely gets blurry and we lose really kind of the crisp edges, but we do at least kind of get the same figure. There's this part which also is actually kind of floating above the water, so I'm just going to go ahead and kind of get rid of that part. So you just kind of want to go over and maybe find that water line and erase it a little bit more. I think I can shift this down a little bit more. Yeah, there we go. So now we have that illusion. And one other thing I like to do is just give it a make it slightly darker So I'll just hit Control U and just drag this over a little bit more. And there you go. So now we have a nice reflection with our bridge. So that's kind of one of the final things we want to do to really, again, kind of make it as believable as possible. You can see the difference it makes where now that we don't see that reflection, it kind of really creates that eyesore, whereas now we have that idea that there is a slight reflection in the water of the bridge. So this is going to be just a quick video on how to do that. You can obviously apply this for any type of object that you have near water to give it that idea of a reflection instead of, again, using Rhino's water materials to do the reflection. You can simply just have a little more control, I think, in Photoshop to give that illusion.